Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insight and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, and we have a very exciting guest with me today. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation. And for those of you who are listening and joining the podcast, we are a PR growth company and specialize in helping businesses scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure you stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, drop us the word growth in the DMs and we'll make sure we get that to you. Today, we're going to dive into AI and publishing, which is really exciting for me. So welcome to the podcast, Ashok Giri. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Heidi. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to talk with you. And you are with PageMajik, your company. Can you tell us more about a little bit, kick us off with who you are, your company, what you all do, and your role within it?
Sure. So I am the CEO of PageMajik. And basically, I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. Started very, very early when I was 17. Started multiple businesses, sold them. And then, of course, PageMajik is the one that I'm working on right now. We basically started PageMajik when DeepMind beat this Go player. I'm not sure whether you follow that. And I think about 2016, 17, AI just came onto the scene and it looked like AI is going to make a big difference. And so PageMajik was basically started at that point because we felt AI, and as we know today with all the chat GPTs and all the LLMs, we expected this to happen. So we kind of started in 2016, getting ready for AI technology the way it is today.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So can you tell us, like, who do you help? Who does PageMajik help?
Yeah, so talking about PageMajik, so what does PageMajik do? PageMajik customer is a publisher, both a traditional publisher and a non-traditional publisher. What do I mean by a non-traditional publisher? For example, your podcast can be turned into books. So you're a non-traditional publisher, correct? A pharmaceutical company having information is a non-traditional publisher. A traditional publisher is somebody who is either publishing fiction, non-fiction, and trying to get the author's voice out into the market. So that's our primary market. In the past, I used to run a services company, servicing publishers all over the world. And PageMajik is basically a solution to ensure that the workflow is smoothened between the author and the publishing house. It's a solution that sits in between and makes the task of the author and the publisher easier.
So what inspired you to focus on revolutionizing the publishing industry through AI technology?
So publishing industry hasn't really embraced technology the way the other industries have embraced it. And this is something that I love a lot. And I also know a lot about publishing. So like I said, when we realized that AI was becoming a serious thing, it was no longer science fiction, it was going to become something that's realistic. We figured that it's the best time to have a startup that can actually disrupt the way the whole workflow is set up right now. So PageMajik is designed to assist in this workflow and to make sure that time spent on a particular page, you get the maximum benefit.
So you really came into the scene really when AI was just in their true infancy stages, because for many of us, we've really seen it come in the last 2 years. But you're talking back 2016, and we know it's been around for a while, but you really embraced it when it was truly, truly brand new.
Correct, because I think mathematically it's the same thing. The same fundamentals are what we're seeing now, which has come out. But if you look at research and you look at progress that was being made, it was very clear. And we're again at very early stages, right? What we're seeing today is going to become something that we may laugh at, in 6 months or 1 year's time. It's moving so fast, but that's correct. We felt that AI, with the ability to look at text or unstructured content and assist in taking that through is a big deal. So that is when we said that with content and AI, we thought we can make a big difference.
So you integrate, PageMajik integrates AI and process automation to streamline the editorial and production workflows. So can you share and elaborate for us on how these technologies specifically reduce time and operational costs for your publishers?
Fine. So I'll just give you a little background. So everybody reads a book, correct? But nobody realizes the steps that people have to go through by the time the author's word is actually marketable. There are at least a dozen people with different roles who have to sit and look at the manuscript before it gets ready. So what have we done at PageMajik is we have kind of rationalized all these roles and assisting people with technology. We're making sure that if somebody is going to spend time on a page, they're actually completing a task, which may sound very silly, saying, of course, you'd complete a task, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people tend to review a manuscript. But then what happens is the next person has to review the same manuscript. So there are multiple stages that happen in the flow of a manuscript before it becomes an actual product. That PageMajik goes in there and normalizes everything, making sure that everything is easy and everything is, that everything flows in. Because publishing is one of those industries where you can't say that I will give you 99.9999% accuracy, which means I can't turn around to you, say, if I'm a publisher, saying that, okay, every 1,000 words, I will have one typo. Okay. You're never going to buy the book. Every other industry can get away from that because they can actually say things like, we are this accurate, we're that accurate. Publishing is the only industry which can't afford to say that for obvious reasons, right? You can't say that you're going to have mistakes. So you can imagine how robust the systems need to be to ensure that nothing slips through. And there are a lot of things which happen because when the author has a vision in mind and they start writing this, basically they think they have an audience, correct? But the publisher's experience in understanding what the audience wants means that the author's narration may need to be changed. It may need to be reordered. It needs to be made cogent, marketable, saleable. So there's a lot of rework which happens, a lot of things which happen. So even simple things like version control, you assume, let me give you an example. So let's assume an author has, I'm just going to throw out 10 chapters, okay? And the author submits 10 chapters. So the publisher picks it up. Somebody at the editorial team looks at it and they say, chapter 1 is fine, but chapter 2 can do with a little more work, okay? Chapter 3 also can do with a little work. So what happens? The publisher passes chapter 2 back to the author, chapter 3 back to the author, while they're reviewing chapter 4, okay? Now the author will submit chapter 2 again, which means a second submission. And you can see where I'm heading with this. So once with 10 chapters, you have this crisscross of files going up and down. Within about 3 months, there'll be so much of confusion. Is each one working on the right version? Are you working on the version that the author sent you just now, or did you pick up the wrong version? Simple version control, okay, which we take for granted. And typically, how would one manage that? You would have naming conventions. You would say final, or you will put it in a subfolder. You will put a date. You will put some kind of timestamp to recognize that this is the most recent one, correct? Time-consuming activities. And if you have images together with that, images have been redone. You can imagine even a small book of 350 pages can very easily become a very complex project management issue. So PageMajik kind of understands that. It understands images, understands pages, understands what needs to be done. So there are modules and tools, and they're all kinds of fancy things in the system to basically help the human focus on adding value instead of wasting their time in doing mundane routine tasks. So version control, for example, in PageMajik is a given, which means that whoever you are, every time you ask PageMajik to give you a file, it'll only give you the most recent file, okay? So you don't have to worry about working on a wrong file or doing anything else. These are simple, basic things. And sometimes with technology, we try to solve very big problems, but you need to start with the basics, because unless the basics and the foundation is set, nobody can take advantage of fancy tools. You see what I'm saying? So you need to have all of it. So that's the kind of approach. It's a very down-to-earth approach, even though it's nice to say AI. Actually, to be honest, we stopped saying AI 2 years ago because now everybody's an AI expert, right? Anybody who can do a chat GPT prompt or, something else is an AI expert, self-professed. And you've seen that, you have umpteen videos about people talking about that, which is fine. It's a different kind of use. They're using AI to do a couple of things. So we actually talk about machine learning. We talk about, how we can actually help the author, help the publisher. We talk about experience of the author, because the author has to imagine this. The author has an idea, and it's such a tough thing for you to write, correct? It takes guts for somebody to write. It's not that everybody can write, correct? I can talk for 20 minutes. It doesn't mean that I can write a book. So hats off to people who write. So they write the book and they think their ordeal is over. They've written the book, but they don't realize it's just the beginning. Now they have
Oh,
to go through, it has to be cogent, it has to flow, it has to be in English, it has to have, proper punctuation, it has to be, politically correct. It has to go through all of these processes, depending on the market, it has to be for that particular audience. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done after you have written the manuscript.
mm. Yeah, I have a client that reminds me, I have a client who she wrote a book, and I remember the process that she went to just in the last year, and it was exhausting. And she had there was a few rounds of edits and things and deadlines and she was writing it herself. So I can only imagine the ease that PageMajik creates for authors and people that want to publish a book. And also, time is valuable. We can't get our time back. So for you to save these authors or time is in my opinion invaluable. And also your team, in editing and all of that too. You're saving them too. So I can imagine how cost effective this whole process is that you provide. So your content, you mentioned content management. Your PageMajik's content management system supports various content types, so including documents, videos, and also graphic assets. So how does this flexibility benefit publishers in managing and activating different content within a collaborative environment?
That's an excellent question. So obviously, the publishing landscape has changed, correct? I mean,
Mhm.
you're doing a podcast, you have audiobooks, you have so many different ways of reaching an audience. Most of the consumption today is on a mobile device, right? You're looking at it on your phone or your tab. So the a publisher, typical publisher, has to keep pace with the reading habits of the reader, right? Because they're going to consume the same information in different devices. Each
Right.
device has its limitation and advantage. So unless you have an integrated place where the content is mapped to the audio file, to the assets, to the video, you're going to find it very difficult. Imagine having this as disparate content pods or groups, and you're having to make the same change in 4 or 5 places. Just imagine that. It's bad enough having to make it in one place. So PageMajik focuses on what we call a single source of truth, making sure that you're focusing on the content, and then you can transform it into anything else that you need. Make it as easy as possible. Sometimes it's not as easy as I'm saying it. There is work involved, of course. It's not magical, even though we say PageMajik, but there is work involved. But it kind of eases the whole process and makes it such a way that you can track and you know exactly what is happening to your project.
Mm. So looking ahead, Ashok, what are your goals for PageMajik in the next, say, 5 years? And are there any emerging technologies or trends that you see that you aim to incorporate into your platform to further support publishers?
Again, very good question. So there are two problems right now. So what are publishers grappling with? How can they differentiate between AI generated content and AI assisted human generated content? And there's a huge difference, correct? You can query AI and you can, fine tune your ideas, or you can just give it a thought and have it write everything. Obviously, one is more preferable than the other for obvious reasons. So there's one aspect of the technology which has to get oriented towards identifying whether it is really generated by a human, because that's important. When
Hmm.
as a reader, when you buy something, you would like to know, has somebody written it or somebody has had it written, like a ghostwriter, correct? I mean, if
Right.
if I if I pretend that I wrote it and somebody else wrote it for me and I don't talk about it, that's not the thing that's done, right? You have to talk about it. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is interesting, so from creation of images to creating videos to marketing a book to creating content and keeping track of it and basically slicing and dicing. I'll give you an example. So one of our customers is a publisher who publishes a lot of cookbooks. Okay.
Hmm.
So during the last elections in the US, they decided that they wanted a cookbook to be brought out, which will allow people to have a barbecue party with very simple ingredients, which means that they wanted them to focus on, obviously having the party rather than on the barbecue itself. So the requirement was, I think it was 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I may be wrong, but anyway, there was a time limit and there was an ingredient list. Now, conventionally, you can't do that. You'll have to sift through multiple books. Even if you have databased it, you can't do that, okay? Because the same term, I think the ingredients, I don't remember, but the ingredient may not be called the same in across all the books. So with technology like ours, the system knows what you mean, the intent behind what you mean, and goes and identifies all content which satisfy your requirement, and really touch of a button. Now you have all this content available to you, and then the editorial team can decide that these are more relevant and create a book. So for the publisher, creating new products from existing books is a huge thing. It's a huge deal because imagine that you're limited by your imagination, or you're not
Right.
limited by imagination in some sense. You can create these multiple products.
Amazing. So I'd love to switch gears a little bit and talk about your business growth, like what you've experienced, because you've been an entrepreneur for a long, long time, and now you've launched this business. Can you share with us what are some of the challenges that you faced as you've been growing PageMajik, and how did you overcome them?
It's interesting, so you have two successes under your belt, and then you think, you got everything right, correct? So creating a SaaS product company is completely different from running a services business. And then you learn that only painfully. You always have bright ideas. And I'm not sure whether you know this, there's this fantastic program called Excel. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And it's magical because you can put in columns and rows, and you can make any business look fantastic. Okay. You
Right.
can just say, and you can do that. So obviously fell into the same trap. And the reason I'm saying this is, that's important to be realistic, important to realize that, even if you make plans, the world is not aligned with all your plans. So we went through this usual pangs of any startup. The ideas were there. I hate to use the word pivot, but we had to listen to the market carefully. We had to listen to what they wanted. We had to make sure that we're addressing the pain points. Basic common sense is what is needed. That's what I would say. So our whole growth story has been making sure that we apply common sense to business problems, making sure that, we're not overstretching ourselves. Because as all of us, I like technology, so I like to dabble with new things. And obviously, something new you want to dabble, but you have to be practical. Does it
Yeah.
make sense? Does it solve a problem, or are you adding to it? So I think the growth has been like any startup. You learn, you're constantly learning. I think that's the most important thing. And you have to constantly be listening to the market and your customers.
Very good information. Thank you for sharing that. So what specific marketing strategies, how are you getting in front of your clients? And so what, marketing wise, visibility wise, what has worked for you, for your business, and which ones have been the most effective for you?
So what's worked is we use LinkedIn a lot.
Mm.
That's worked well. And my design team, it's a small team, but they keep pushing me in front. And apparently, if I do videos, then it does even better. So we've been trying to take this approach of not selling PageMajik as much as just talking about different workflows and potential solutions for everything. Not coming in and trying to sell as much as outlining solutions and identifying problems. Because a lot of times I may have a solution, but if the market doesn't acknowledge the problem, then my solution is not needed, right? So it's
Right.
very important that we educate both of this. So LinkedIn has been good, making videos has been good. Cold emails don't work that much because our software is more like a enterprise software. So it's a very serious decision. It's not something you sign up for $5 or $10 and try it out for 3 months and then you let it go. This is something that the company has to invest in. So the marketing has to be a little more from a viewpoint of being stable between of portraying us as a company that understands the whole landscape and the solution that fits in. So LinkedIn videos, a lot of YouTube videos talking about problems and
Mm.
scenarios. That's really what we've done. And blogs. We write quite a few blogs to reach the audience.
Amazing. So consistent and being consistent in that space is highly, I'm sure, key for you all, which what your team pushes you to do those videos so they can consistently be putting that content out.
Correct. I'm the most reluctant participant. If you talk to my team, they have stories and stories to tell you, but it works. Like you said, that's very important. Consistency and having a tone and an approach that's also consistent. You can't waver. You can't go from 0 to 100 and keep changing all over the place. There's something that needs to be there. And you can't be boring. There are a lot of things, and there's no one formula. You really can't tell that one worked or this one worked. It's just a question of just keep doing it, and you hope that you're doing it the right way, and you hope that people are listening to you, and they're talking. There's something that's going on, and you're getting through to people. That's really what it is. You have to keep your fingers crossed at all times. There's no formula that you can just apply and do. Like I said, listening to your customers and having common sense, you should never let that go.
Yeah. So what's your biggest goal for 2025, Ashok?
So we're right now at the growth stage, okay, and we're a small company. We're just
Mm.
about 30 people. So every stage the company goes through, you have to make sure that people have to scale up, right? Because the role that they were playing in 2024 was different. Now in 2025, when you have more customers coming in, everybody has to multitask. People have to do that, and as you know, managing is always about managing people for their strengths. You use people for strengths, then it's a company that does well. You use people for the weakness. Everybody has, right? I am also guilty of that. I'm sure that each one of us has. I may have more than other people, but you have to make sure that you use people for their strength. So the goal is to make sure that the process is set up very well in PageMajik this year. We kind of, doubling down on making sure that, everything that we're saying and everything that we're doing is something that is repeatable, is something that's consistent, making sure that, the customer journey when they sign up with us is consistent, and they kind of, the support and everything else is consistent. So this is more the time that we're just going to pull back, consolidate everything, making sure that we got everything right, because that's also an important phase. It's even though it may not sound very exciting, but it's very critical for a business to do that at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would success look for you? If we could come back and revisit this conversation in a year, what would success look like for you in PageMajik?
It's an interesting thing. So I think balance between work and time, if you can
Mm.
get that in control. I have a bucket list. Obviously, if you realize I've been around for some time, so I have a lot of things to do. So I think being able to do everything that you like and love without having to give up something, it's not, you don't trade off, because it is interesting to be under pressure and work. Okay, it's also boring to be under pressure and work continuously. So you can't have a dish which is sweet and you can't live on that continuously, right? You need to spice it up. So I think if I can do that not only for myself, for the entire team, and make sure that it's everything that they do is more meaningful than this year, then everything will work its luck. Money and everything else is something that comes when you enjoy what you do. Everything else just follows automatically. You can't chase one particular thing. That's what I believe.
Yeah. I love that. So it sounds like, Ashok, you've had a really incredible journey so far. And based on your goal for the business and for your team and for you of having that balance there of creating that work and time and also really enjoyment of what you're doing. If you had a magic wand to fix one thing in the business right now that's either holding you back or slowing you down in order to get to that goal, what would that one thing be?
Yeah, again, give me a second. I'm thinking. So the magic
No, you're
wand would be,
good.
yeah, it'll actually be the ability to think in a multi-dimensional way, especially for a product company. The entire team to think in a different way, think out of the box, think of solutions. Think of different ways you can do it. Because in a product, you really have to think before you implement something. And to
Mm.
be honest, the best solution is when you don't do any coding. You already have it built in the software. So I think that is the most important thing, that the ability to think differently, the ability to raise your hand and say that you have a problem, more often than not. Basic, simple things. That's the most important thing, I think that we would need in any company, and definitely in PageMajik.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing everything you shared today. Ashok, how can people that are listening reach out to you and connect with you?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Like I said, my marketing team pushes me. I used to be a reluctant LinkedIn participant, but I'm kind of there right now. You know, I'm there on our website also. So if there's any information people want or any assistance, I'm happy to provide, because I believe in sharing experiences, because I think that, it's that's what makes us human. And
Mhm.
in the world of these chat GPTs and AI, I think we should all strive to be more human than, what we were 2 or 3 years ago. That's very important, because otherwise we lose our sense of identity and we lose who we are. That's very, very important. So
Yes. And I love that you said that, especially you being in a technology company, in the, SaaS company, but you're using AI to help publishers move faster and authors create books faster too. I love that you said that we get to be more humanized because I do think that's important. AI is an amazing tool. It's not going away. It's only evolving. We need to embrace it and use it for those efficiencies and productivities that they're meant for. But also, we need that humanness. We can't lose that connection in the process. So that's fantastic. And we're going to have all of Ashok's contact information and his bio, all the things that you can find out more about him in the show notes. So feel free to go check it out in the show notes of the podcast. And you can go to PageMajik.com also to learn more. And that's with a J. So it's Page, PageMajik.
Okay. Yeah.
K, and it's with, so it's, I was just checking my notes to make sure, because I'm like, I thought I saw a K. So it's PageMajik with a J and a K.com. And again, we'll have that information for you. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, please leave Ashok a message below, leave a comment, ask a question, and also subscribe. So you're going to get notified when we have more amazing guests like Ashok come on the podcast. And also please share if you know of somebody that you think would benefit from Ashok's company, what they do to help, and his message here today. Please make sure that you share it with somebody, help somebody get further with this information. It's free, and it's a gift to share it to others. Also, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or more, and you can leave a review, please do. This is the way we get out to help more people, by sharing our amazing guests that we bring on, and we'd really appreciate it. Ashok, is there anything that I didn't get to ask you about or we didn't touch on that you'd like to share before we go?
No, I think you covered everything. I think hopefully the information that we spoke about is useful for people. Unfortunately, it's very practical, and it's not high flying kind of information, but the basic information is something that we always forget about. So I think that's, like I keep saying, return to basics, everything will be fine.
Absolutely. And I think we overcomplicate. So it's not unfortunately, it's fortunately that you broke it down to simplify it and make it easy to consume for everybody. And I appreciate that, because many times we can overcomplicate things, which will actually slow us down. And like you said, it's really, when you were growing your business, it's coming back to the common sense. The common sense matters. And I love that you didn't share common sense stuff today. You shared stuff that was really like, I learned a lot. So I really appreciate everything you shared with us today, and you breaking it down so simply, so consumable for us. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to us here on the Business Growth Spotlight. Ashok and I are grateful for your time. If you're looking to scale your business and you're feeling like you're just not getting the visibility, you're not getting in front of your people the way you should be getting out there, no matter what you do, then go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. I promise you, stick around and you'll get something, and you can go grab that for free. Thank you again for your time today, Ashok. Thank you for listening to us, and we will see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.